My hands shook as I held the kitchen knife away from my own chest. It was my daughter, my only child, the same girl I carried in my womb for 9 months, who stood in front of me with wild eyes screaming, "I'll kill you if you don't leave me alone." Her face was red, her hair messy, and her hands trembled, not from weakness but from anger. In that moment my heart stopped. I had just buried my husband only weeks earlier. And now, in the middle of my grief, I was staring at my daughter, my blood, my joy, my everything, threatening to take my life. The words she spat at me didn't sound like her voice. It was like something else had taken over her, something dark, something that didn't know me as her mother. She picked up a heavy glass vase from the table and raised it high above her head. My body froze. I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs refused to move. And then, the vase slipped. It smashed against the floor with a thunder that echoed through the house. For a second, silence swallowed the room. My daughter's chest heaved, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. I didn't know if she would collapse in tears or reach for something sharper, something deadlier. That afternoon changed my life forever. But let me take you back to how it all began. My name is Margaret, though most people just call me Grandma Maggie. I'm 68 years old, and I'm speaking to you right now from my small house in Ohio, here in the United States. Before I continue, I'd like to ask you kindly, please don't forget to subscribe, like this story, and click the notification button so you won't miss any of the next chapters. And also, tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this story? I'd love to know. Now let me go back to my story. The truth is, life had already broken me before that terrible afternoon. My husband John, the man I had spent 45 years with, had just died 2 months before. It was sudden. A heart attack. One morning he was drinking his coffee and reading the newspaper, and before the sun set that evening, I was a widow. Losing him felt like losing my right arm. We had grown old together, raised our daughter together, and even argued and laughed over the smallest things. He wasn't perfect, no man is, but he was mine. When he died, part of me died too. I cried every night. Sometimes I would sleep in his chair, just to smell his scent. The house felt too quiet without his footsteps, too empty without his laughter. My daughter, Emma, came to stay with me for a while. At first, I was so thankful she was there. She told me she wanted to take care of me. But soon, I noticed something was wrong with her. Emma wasn't the same girl I knew. She barely ate, barely slept. She talked to herself sometimes, whispering words I couldn't understand. She would get angry suddenly, so angry that I would hide in my room and pray. I told myself it was just the stress of losing her father. Maybe she was grieving in her own way. But deep inside, I feared something bigger was wrong. One night, I woke up to the sound of banging. I rushed to her room, and found her hitting the wall with her fists until they bled. When I tried to stop her, she turned and looked at me with eyes so cold that I had to step back. She shouted, "Leave me alone or I'll hurt you too." I thought it was just words. I thought she didn't mean it. But then came that afternoon. I was cooking soup, trying to keep myself busy, when Emma stormed into the kitchen. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and wild. She started yelling that I was spying on her, that I wanted to poison her, that I wasn't her real mother anymore. My heart pounded. I tried to calm her, but the more I spoke, the louder she screamed. Then she grabbed the knife. Her hand shook as she pointed it toward me. For the first time in my life, I felt true fear of my own child. My knees grew weak, my heart raced, and my soul screamed to God for help. That was when she shouted those words. "I'll kill you." The knife gleamed under the light. I felt trapped, helpless, like a prisoner in my own home. But before she could step closer, the vase shattered. And in that silence, in that breathless moment, something else happened, something I will never forget. She dropped the knife. Her eyes rolled back. And then she collapsed to the floor. That is where I will stop for now. The story has only just begun, and what happened after that moment was even more shocking. Her body hit the floor with a dull thud. For a moment, I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat. The knife lay inches from her hand. The shards of the broken vase scattered around her like pieces of my own shattered heart. I thought she was dead. "Emma!" I screamed, falling to my knees beside her. My hands shook as I touched her cheek, It was clammy, her lips pale. Her chest rose and fell weakly, but she was breathing. Relief washed over me, yet terror clung just as tightly. What had happened to my daughter? What darkness had crawled into her mind, turning her against me? I tried to wake her, shaking her gently, but her body was limp. I was too scared to leave her alone, yet too panicked to think clearly. With trembling fingers, I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Please, I begged the operator. My daughter, she collapsed. She tried to hurt me. Please send help. Minutes felt like hours until the ambulance finally arrived. The paramedics rushed in, their calm voices a sharp contrast to the storm raging inside me. They checked her pulse, lifted her onto a stretcher, and carried her out of the house. I followed, clutching my sweater tightly around me as though it could shield me from the truth. At the hospital, I sat in the waiting room under the harsh fluorescent lights. People walked past me, doctors in white coats, nurses pushing carts, families whispering prayers. But I sat alone, my eyes fixed on the door that separated me from Emma. When the doctor finally came out, I jumped to my feet. Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay. The doctor looked at me with a mix of pity and seriousness. Your daughter is alive, but she's in a very fragile state. From what you described, and from her condition, she might be suffering from a severe mental health crisis. We need to run some tests, but she's not safe to be alone right now. Those words stabbed me harder than any knife ever could. My daughter wasn't just grieving. She was sick. Very sick. The next days were some of the hardest of my life. Emma was kept in a special ward where she couldn't hurt herself or anyone else. I visited her every day, even when she refused to see me. Sometimes she sat silently, staring at the wall. Other times she shouted at me, accusing me of things that weren't real. One afternoon, when I brought her favorite blanket from home, she looked at me with cold eyes and whispered, "You should have died with Dad." The words pierced my soul. I had already lost my husband, and now, it felt like I was losing my daughter too. But I couldn't give up on her. I told myself over and over, she's my child. She doesn't mean it. She's not herself right now. Still, every visit left me weaker. Some nights I sat on my porch, staring at the stars, and wondered how much more I could take. Grief was heavy enough, but carrying fear of my own daughter, it was crushing me. Weeks passed and slowly, there were moments when Emma seemed calmer. One day, she even held my hand for a few seconds before pulling it away. That small touch gave me hope. But hope didn't last long. Because one evening, as I prepared to leave the hospital, a nurse pulled me aside. Her face was pale. "Mrs. Maggie, I don't want to alarm you, but something happened. Your daughter. She tried to escape the ward today. She said she needed to get home. And she said if we didn't let her out, she would finish what she started with you." My knees nearly gave way. The nurse caught my arm to steady me. "She's being watched closely now. But you need to be careful. Very careful." That night, I lay awake in bed, listening to every creak of the old house, every shadow on the wall. My daughter was locked away, but her words echoed in my head like a curse. And then, just as my eyes were about to close, the phone rang. I picked it up with shaking hands. On the other end, a voice whispered, soft, chilling, unmistakably hers. "Mom, I'm coming home." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. My heart pounded so hard that I thought it might burst from my chest. "Mom, I'm coming home." Those words echoed in my head like a nightmare. But it couldn't be real. How could Emma call me if she was still in the hospital ward under watch? My fingers shook as I bent to pick up the receiver again, whispering, "Emma? Emma." The line was dead. I sat frozen, staring at the silent phone. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe my grief was playing tricks on me. But deep inside, I knew that voice. It was hers. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat in the living room with the lights on, clutching the old family Bible in my lap. Every sound, the wind against the window, the ticking of the clock, even the hum of the refrigerator, made me jump. The next morning, I rushed to the hospital. I cornered the nurse at the reception desk. "I need to see my daughter. Now." The nurse gave me a polite but firm smile. "She's fine, Mrs. Maggie. She's still under supervision. Still under supervision." Still in the ward. Still impossible for her to have called me. Did she use a phone last night? I asked. The nurse shook her head. That's not allowed. I walked down the hall to Emma's room. Through the small glass window, I saw her curled up on her bed, asleep. A blanket covered her shoulders, her chest rising and falling slowly. She looked peaceful, like the little girl I used to tuck in at night. But then she stirred, turned her head toward me, and opened her eyes. Our eyes met through the glass. And she smiled. It wasn't a sweet smile. It was cold, sharp, as if she knew exactly what I had heard the night before. My knees trembled. I wanted to believe it was all in my mind, but her expression told me otherwise. That afternoon when I returned home, the fear followed me like a shadow. I locked the doors, shut the curtains, and sat in silence. But no matter how tightly I locked the house, I couldn't lock out the memory of her voice. Days passed. Emma stayed at the hospital, but my unease grew heavier. Sometimes late at night the phone would ring. When I answered, there was only silence. Sometimes a faint breathing. And then click. I told the doctors. I told the nurses. They all said the same thing. It's impossible, Mrs. Maggie. Patients here don't have access to phones. But I knew what I heard. One evening as I sat at the kitchen table, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No stamp. No return address. Just my name, Mom. My hand shook as I tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, written in messy handwriting I knew too well. It read, "You can't hide from me. I'm coming back to finish what I started." The paper slipped from my hand, my heart raced, and my body went cold all over. I stumbled back, nearly knocking over the chair when I heard it. A knock on the back door. 3 slow, heavy knocks. I froze, staring at the door. My legs screamed for me to run, but my heart refused to move. Then came her voice. "Mom, open up." The sound of her voice at the back door sent a chill down my spine. It was soft but sharp, almost sing-song, like she was mocking me. "Mom, open up." My legs trembled so badly I thought they might give way. Slowly I crept toward the back door. Each step heavy, my breath shaky. The kitchen light flickered as if even the house itself was afraid. I pressed my ear against the door. Silence. Then knock, 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 3 heavy thuds again. "Emma," I whispered, though I already knew. A low laugh came from the other side. "You can't lock me out forever." My heart stopped. It couldn't be her. She was supposed to be at the hospital. She was supposed to be guarded. Yet her voice was there, just inches from me, separated only by a thin wooden door. I backed away, grabbed the phone, and dialed the hospital. "Please," I cried. "Is my daughter still there? Tell me she's still there." The nurse on the other end sounded calm, almost too calm. "Yes, Mrs. Maggie. Your daughter is safe in her room. I just checked." I nearly dropped the phone. No, she's here. She's at my back door right now." The nurse hesitated. Then her voice lowered. "Mrs. Maggie, we have security cameras in the ward. She hasn't moved from her bed." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. My mind screamed. If she was in the hospital, then who or what was at my door? The knocks grew louder, faster, more impatient. Bam, bam, bam. I ran into the living room and clutched John's old baseball bat, the one he used to keep by the porch for just in case. My breath came in quick bursts as I moved back toward the kitchen. The knocking had stopped. Silence. Then through the window above the sink I saw it. A shadow. Tall, thin, moving across the yard. I couldn't make out a face, only the outline of a figure, pacing slowly, deliberately. My heart raced as I ducked below the window, clutching the bat to my chest. Minutes dragged by like hours until finally, nothing. The shadow was gone. I locked every door, every window, and sat in the corner of the living room, rocking back and forth. My mind was a storm. Was I losing it? Was grief making me imagine things? Or was there something darker, something I couldn't explain? The next morning, I forced myself to the hospital. I had to see Emma with my own eyes. When I walked into her room, she was sitting upright on the bed, her hair messy, her eyes tired. But the moment she saw me, her lips curved into that same cold smile. "You look tired, Mom," she said softly. "Didn't sleep well?" My mouth went dry. How do you know?" I stammered. She tilted her head. her eyes narrowing. Because I was with you last night. My blood turned to ice. No, you weren't. You were here. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Was I? I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the chair. The nurse rushed in, asking if everything was okay. I nodded quickly, too afraid to speak. But when I looked back at Emma, she was still smiling. That same terrifying smile that told me she knew something I didn't. I left the hospital shaken, unsure of what was real and what wasn't. The world outside seemed colder, darker, heavier. And when I arrived home, I found something waiting for me on the porch. Another envelope. This one wasn't just a letter. Inside was a photograph. It was me, sleeping in my own bed. The photograph slipped from my fingers and floated to the floor like a feather, but its weight crushed me more than 1,000 stones. My hands shook violently as I bent to pick it up again, staring at the image with wide, tear-filled eyes. It was me. I was lying in my own bed, the same blanket pulled up to my chest, my mouth slightly open as I slept. The curtains in the photo were parted just enough for a faint glow of the street lamp to spill into the room. The angle was from inside the house. Someone had been standing in my bedroom while I slept. I stumbled backward, clutching the photograph against my chest. My stomach twisted, while rising in my throat. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My safe place, my home, had been violated. My first thought was Emma. But how? She was locked in a hospital ward. The doctors swore she hadn't left. The nurses said she was under constant supervision. So then who took this picture? And why leave it for me? I ran from room to room, checking every lock, every window. Nothing was broken, nothing was forced open. The house was as secure as I had left it. Yet the photo told me otherwise. Someone had been inside. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, too terrified to sleep. Every creak of the old wooden floor, every groan of the pipes made my heart jump. I clutched John's baseball bat and kept the photo on the nightstand, as if watching it would somehow give me control. At exactly 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text message. With trembling hands, I unlocked it. It was a single picture. This time, not of me. It was Emma, standing outside my front gate. Her eyes wide, her head tilted, her lips twisted into that same cold smile. I nearly dropped the phone. I rushed to the window, pulled back the curtain with trembling fingers. Nothing. The street outside was empty. Silent. I felt like I was losing my mind. My body ached with exhaustion, but sleep was impossible. I stayed awake until dawn, praying under my breath, begging God to protect me. The next morning I stormed back to the hospital. My voice shook as I demanded to see Emma. The nurse frowned. "Mrs. Maggie, please calm down. She's here. She hasn't left." I didn't believe her. I pushed past until I reached Emma's room. There she was lying in bed, her eyes closed, breathing slowly. But as if she sensed me, her eyes snapped open the moment I entered. "Did you like the picture?" she whispered. My whole body froze. "What picture?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Her lips curled into that smile again. "The one of you sleeping." Tears welled in my eyes. "How do you know about that?" She giggled. Not the giggle of a child, but something eerie. Something that sent shivers down my spine. "Because, Mom, I was there." I stumbled back against the door, my hand fumbling for the handle. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. I wanted to run, but my legs felt like they were filled with stone. The nurse entered again, asking if everything was all right. I forced a smile and nodded, but inside I was crumbling. On the way home my mind raced. If Emma truly hadn't left the hospital, then what was happening? Was she playing with me from afar? Or was there something even darker, something unexplainable tying us together? When I finally reached my house, I noticed something different. The porch light, which I had left on that morning, was off. And taped to the front door was another envelope. Inside was another photograph. This time it wasn't just of me sleeping. It was of me standing at the hospital earlier that day talking to the nurse. Someone was watching me everywhere I went. And I was no longer safe. The photograph slipped from my trembling hands and landed on the porch floor. My legs felt weak, my chest heavy, and a scream pressed against my throat but refused to escape. The picture showed me at the hospital earlier that very day, standing in the hallway, my mouth open mid-sentence as I spoke to the nurse. It was taken from behind, close enough that whoever held the camera could have reached out and touched me. Someone was following me, watching me, stalking me. I staggered into the house, slammed the door shut, and locked it. My breathing came in shallow bursts. I pressed my back against the door, sliding down until I sat on the floor with my knees pulled up to my chest. For a long time, I just sat there, rocking back and forth, clutching the photograph in my hands. My mind spun in circles. If Emma was still in the hospital, then who was leaving these pictures? Who was knocking on my door at night? Who was standing outside my house? Or worse, could it really still be Emma? I tried to convince myself it wasn't possible. Yet her words replayed in my mind. Because I was there. By the time night fell, my body ached with exhaustion, but I couldn't close my eyes. I made myself a cup of tea, sat in John's chair by the window, and stared out into the darkness. My heart leapt at every flicker of movement, every shift of shadow. At exactly midnight, the phone rang. I froze, staring at it, my tea trembling in my hand. Slowly, I set the cup down and reached for the receiver. "Hello," I whispered. For a few seconds, only silence. Then a familiar voice, low and sharp, slithered through the line. "Mom, why did you show them the picture?" My blood turned to ice. "Emma." A giggle answered me. "You can't keep me locked up. I'll always find you." The line went dead. I stood there shaking, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. My whole body wanted to collapse, but I forced myself to stay upright. I couldn't let fear destroy me, not yet. The next morning, I decided to fight back. I bought extra locks for every door and window. I installed motion lights around the yard. I even borrowed my neighbor's dog, a big German shepherd named Rex, to keep me company at night. For a few days, things were quiet. Too quiet. No knocks at the door, no envelopes, no phone calls. I began to wonder if maybe it was over, if the nightmare had finally passed. But then on the fourth night, Rex began to bark. It was a deep, furious bark, the kind that rattled the windows. I grabbed the baseball bat and rushed to the back door, my heart hammering in my chest. The motion light flickered on. And there, standing just beyond the fence, was Emma. Or at least, it looked like her. She was wearing a pale hospital gown, her hair messy, her eyes wide and unblinking. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood there, watching me. I gasped and stumbled back. Rex barked louder, lunging toward the fence, but she didn't flinch. I blinked once. And in that single blink, she was gone. Vanished. I rushed outside, the bat shaking in my grip, but the yard was empty. No footprints in the dirt. No sound in the night air. Just silence. I dragged myself back inside, trembling all over. My mind screamed at me, was it real? Or was I losing my sanity? The answer came the next morning when I checked my front porch. Another envelope. Inside, a fresh photograph. This time it wasn't of me. It was of Rex, my neighbor's dog, lying still in the grass, his eyes closed. And written on the back in messy handwriting were 4 chilling words. "You're next, Mom." The photo slipped from my fingers and fluttered onto the kitchen table. My whole body shook as though a cold wind had swept through me. Rex, the dog who had barked so fiercely the night before. The dog I had trusted to guard me. In the photo, he was lying in the grass, his eyes closed, his body lifeless. Tears filled my eyes as I rushed outside, praying, begging that it wasn't real. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs with each step across the yard. And then I saw him. Rex was there, lying near the fence. His chest didn't move. His tongue lolled from his mouth. "No, no, no," I whispered, falling to my knees beside him. My trembling hands touched his fur. It was still warm, but he didn't stir. He was gone. I broke down, sobbing into the dog's neck. Not only had I lost my husband, not only was I losing my daughter, but now even this small protection had been taken from me. Whoever, or whatever, was tormenting me was stripping away every piece of safety I had left. I stumbled back into the house and locked the door. My breaths came short and sharp, and the photo with the words, "You're next, Mom," burned in my mind. That night, I didn't dare turn off the lights. I sat in John's chair, clutching the baseball bat, my eyes darting to every corner. The shadows on the wall seemed alive, stretching and twisting as though mocking me. At exactly 3 a.m. I heard it. Then, top, 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 a knock on the living room window. I spun around. The curtains were drawn, but a faint shadow moved across them, long and thin. My heart pounded. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was frozen in place. And then a whisper slipped through the window, muffled but clear. "Mom, let me in." I staggered backward, nearly tripping over the coffee table. My breath caught in my throat. It was Emma's voice. I shook my head violently. No, you're not here. You're in the hospital." A low laugh echoed outside. "Am I?" My trembling hands reached for the phone. I dialed the hospital, my voice frantic as I begged the nurse to check on Emma. Within minutes she came back on the line. "Mrs. Maggie, your daughter is asleep in her room. She hasn't moved all night." The phone slipped from my grip, clattering to the floor. My body went cold all over. If Emma was truly in the hospital, then who was outside my house? The knocking grew louder, harder, more desperate. Bam, bam, bam. "Mom!" the voice screamed now. "Let me in." I clutched the bat, tears streaming down my face. My whole body shook violently as I backed into the corner of the room. And then crash. The living room window shattered into 1,000 pieces. Glass rained down across the carpet as a shadow climbed inside. I screamed. The glass exploded across the floor like a storm of knives. My scream tore through the house as I stumbled back, shielding my face with my arms. The shadow slid inside through the broken window. The moonlight caught it, and for the first time I saw it clearly. It was Emma. Or at least it looked like her. She wore the same pale hospital gown. Her hair hung wild around her face, her skin pale as chalk, her lips twisted into that terrifying smile I'd come to dread. Her eyes, oh, her eyes. They were wide, unblinking, glowing with something unnatural. "Mom," she whispered, her voice stretched and strange, almost echoing. "I told you. I'd come home." My heart thudded so violently I thought it might stop altogether. I gripped John's old baseball bat tighter, though my arms shook so hard I could barely hold it. "Stay back," I cried. "You're not my daughter. You can't be." She tilted her head, the smile widening. A mother should always recognize her child. Step by step she moved closer, her bare feet crunching over the shattered glass. Each step made my stomach twist tighter. I could barely breathe. I raised the bat higher. "Don't make me do this, Emma. Please. Don't come closer." But she only laughed. A low, chilling laugh that filled the whole room. "You can't hurt me. You never could." Her words froze me. The same words my daughter had shouted during one of her breakdowns in the hospital. Was this really her? Was she here in the flesh? Or was my mind playing tricks on me, shaping my grief and fear into this monster before me? I couldn't tell anymore. She lunged. I swung the bat with all the strength left in me. It struck her shoulder with a sickening thud, and she stumbled back, but didn't fall. Instead, she straightened, her smile wider than before. "That hurt, Mom," she hissed. "You'll pay for that." I backed away, tears streaming down my cheeks. My legs hit the wall, leaving me nowhere to run. Her hands reached out toward me, trembling yet strong like claws. I screamed again, raising the bat for another swing. But before I could strike, the front door burst open. "Mrs. Maggie." It was my neighbor, Mr. Harris, holding a flashlight in one hand and a pistol in the other. Rex's owner. He must have heard the crash. Emma, or the thing that looked like Emma, snarled at the sight of him, her face twisting with rage. And then, just like that, she vanished. Gone. No footsteps, no shadow, nothing. Just empty space where she had been standing a heartbeat before. The glass still lay shattered on the floor, my bat still heavy in my hands, and my tears still running hot down my face. But she was gone. Mr. Harris rushed to me, grabbing my shoulders. "What happened? Are you hurt?" I shook my head violently, pointing at the window. She was here. My daughter. She broke in. He shined the flashlight around, his frown deepening. "There's no one here, Maggie. Are you sure?" "I saw her," I screamed. She was standing right there. But the empty room mocked me with its silence. I sank to the floor, my whole body trembling, my voice breaking into sobs. And then, as Mr. Harris helped me up, I noticed something glinting among the shards of glass. Another envelope. I snatched it up with shaking hands, ripped it open, and read the words written in Emma's messy handwriting. "You can't stop me. Next time you won't wake up." The words on that paper burned into my mind. "You can't stop me. Next time you won't wake up." I dropped the letter, my knees giving way beneath me. Mr. Harris bent down, picked it up, and read it under the beam of his flashlight. His face turned pale. "Who's doing this to you, Maggie?" he asked. I shook my head violently, clutching my chest. "It's her. It's Emma. She's tormenting me." He frowned. "But your daughter's still in the hospital. I checked the paper this morning. They said she's under constant care." "I don't care what they say," I shouted, my voice breaking into sobs. "She was here. She broke through that window. I saw her, Harris. I heard her. It was Emma." He didn't argue. He just helped me to my feet and guided me into the kitchen, away from the shattered glass. "You can't stay here tonight. Not alone. Pack a bag. You'll come to my house until we figure this out." But I shook my head. My pride, or maybe my fear, anchored me to the spot. "No. This is my home. I won't be chased out of it. Not by her. Not by anyone." Harris sighed but didn't push me further. Instead, he nailed a wooden board across the broken window and promised to keep an eye on my place from across the street. "Lock every door. Every window. Don't open up for anyone." That night, I sat in John's chair again, gripping the baseball bat, staring at the boarded-up window. My body trembled with exhaustion, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. Around 2 a.m., the house grew cold. Not just chilly, but bone-deep cold, as if the warmth had been sucked out of the air. The lamp beside me flickered, then dimmed until the room was barely lit. And then I heard it. Soft, faint, coming from upstairs. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. One after another. My blood ran cold. The bat nearly slipped from my hands. I knew I had locked every door, every window. No one could have gotten in. Yet the sound was clear. Someone was in my house. "Emma," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. I forced myself to climb the stairs, each step heavy as lead. The hallway stretched before me, the shadows long and sharp. At the very end was my bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. The footsteps stopped. I pushed the door open with the tip of the bat, and froze. On my bed lay a fresh photograph. I picked it up with trembling fingers. My heart dropped into my stomach. It was a picture of me, standing right there in the hallway, holding the bat, taken only seconds earlier. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was watching me at that very moment. And then I heard it. A whisper. Right behind me. "Good night, Mom. Good night, Mom." The whisper was so close I felt the warmth of breath against my ear. My whole body froze. My grip on the bat weakened, and the photo slipped from my hand, fluttering to the floor. I spun around, swinging wildly into the darkness of the hallway. Nothing. The corridor stretched behind me, empty and still, the shadows pooling in the corners. But I knew someone had been there. Someone was still there. My heart thundered so hard it hurt. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. I bolted into my bedroom, slammed the door shut and locked it. My back pressed against the wood. My hands trembling so badly, I could barely hold the bat. Then, top, top, top. The sound came from the other side of the door. Light, deliberate knocks, as though someone were playing with me. "Emma," I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Why are you doing this to me?" A voice answered. Calm, almost tender. "Because you let me go." The words stabbed into my heart. My daughter had screamed those same words once during a breakdown, blaming me for admitting her into the hospital. "Emma," I begged, sliding down against the door, clutching the bat like a lifeline. "Please. I never stopped loving you. I did what I thought would help." The knocking stopped. Silence. Then scratching. Nails dragging across the wood, slow and deliberate, as if someone wanted to carve through. The sound made my skin crawl. I couldn't take it anymore. I reached for the phone on the nightstand, hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped it, and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered, but before I could speak, The line crackled with static. A sharp, high-pitched whine pierced my ear. And then I heard her voice through the phone. "Why call them, Mom? They can't save you." I screamed and hurled the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. The scratching stopped. Silence again. I waited, holding my breath, straining to hear anything. Minutes passed. Nothing. Slowly, I crawled into bed, still gripping the bat, too exhausted to fight the weight pressing down on my chest. My body gave out before my mind, and my eyes finally closed. But when I woke, sunlight streaming through the blinds, something icy coiled in my stomach. My dresser mirror had been smeared with red lipstick, letters scrawled across the glass. "Next time I won't knock." The words on the mirror glared at me in the morning light. "Next time I won't knock." My hands trembled as I traced the letters with my eyes, the red lipstick thick and smeared, like a child's angry handwriting. I stumbled back, clutching my chest. This wasn't just fear anymore. It was war. Whatever Emma had become, she wanted me to know she could come and go as she pleased. I rushed to the bathroom sink, splashed cold water on my face, and stared at my reflection. My eyes looked hollow, sunken from lack of sleep. My hair, usually neat, was wild and gray around my face. I looked less like a grandmother and more like a ghost myself. I couldn't keep this inside anymore. I had to tell someone who would believe me. Not Harris, not the police. They thought I was confused, grieving, imagining things. But there was one person who might understand. Pastor Collins. He had known Emma since she was a baby. He'd been there for us after John's death. If anyone could help me make sense of this darkness, it was him. I called him, my hands shaking so badly I could hardly hold the phone. "Pastor, it's Maggie," I whispered when he answered. I need to see you. Today. Please." He agreed to meet me at the church that afternoon. Until then, the hours dragged on like heavy chains. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump. Every shadow in the corner looked like Emma waiting for me. I kept the bat close, never letting it out of my sight. When I finally stepped outside to walk to the church, the sunlight felt foreign, almost mocking. Neighbors greeted me, but I couldn't bring myself to wave back. My mind was trapped in the nightmare. At the church, the tall stained glass windows cast colors across the pews. Pastor Collins sat waiting at the altar, his kind eyes softening when he saw me. "Maggie," he said gently, guiding me to sit. "Tell me everything." And I did. The envelopes. The whispers. The shadow that looked like Emma. The message on the mirror. Every word poured out of me like water bursting from a dam. He listened in silence, his hands clasped, his brow furrowed. When I finally finished, tears staining my face, he sighed deeply. "Maggie," he said softly. "I believe you." My breath caught. You do." He nodded. "Evil takes many forms. Sometimes it hides in grief. Sometimes in illness. And sometimes, it takes the shape of those we love most." I gripped his arm. Desperation in my voice. "What do I do? How do I stop her?" He leaned closer, his voice firm. "You must confront her. Not with anger. Not with fear. But with truth. Evil feeds on weakness. You must show her you are not afraid." I wanted to believe him. But how could I stand fearless in the face of my own child? Before I could answer, the church doors slammed shut. Bang! The sound echoed through the sanctuary. The stained glass windows rattled. My heart leapt into my throat. Pastor Collins stood quickly, his eyes narrowing. And then from the back of the church came a voice I knew too well. "Mom!" It was Emma. Her figure appeared in the doorway, shadowed but unmistakable. The pastor whispered, "Stay behind me." But Emma's smile stretched wide as she stepped inside. "No," she said. "This is between me and her." Emma's figure filled the church doorway, the sunlight behind her casting her into shadow. My heart pounded so violently I thought I might faint right there on the pew. "Emma," I whispered, my voice breaking. She stepped forward, slow, deliberate, her bare feet echoing against the old wooden floor. Her pale gown swayed slightly, and her wild hair framed her face like a dark halo. Her eyes fixed on me, cold, unblinking, and terrifying. Pastor Collins held out his hand protectively. "You are not welcome here. This is a house of God." Emma tilted her head. a twisted smile curling across her lips. God doesn't live here, Pastor. Don't you know? He left a long time ago. Her words chilled me to the bone. Pastor Collins gripped the small wooden cross that hung around his neck. His voice was steady but firm. You are not Emma. Whatever spirit speaks through her, I command you, leave her now. The air in the church shifted. The candles flickered, though no wind blew. Emma's smile vanished, replaced by a snarl so fierce it twisted her face into something inhuman. She screamed, a sound so sharp and shrill it rattled the stained glass. I covered my ears, falling to my knees, tears pouring down my cheeks. Stop! I begged. Please stop. The pastor raised his cross higher. In the name of Jesus Christ, leave this woman. Emma laughed, low and guttural. You think words will drive me out? She belongs to me. Her mind, her body, her soul. Her finger lifted, pointing directly at me. And soon you will too. I stumbled backward, clutching the pew for balance. Emma, please. It's me, Mom. Don't do this. For a split second, her face softened. Her eyes flickered with something familiar. Pain, sadness, fear. Mom, she whispered. My heart leapt. Yes, baby. I'm here. I love you. But just as quickly the darkness returned. Her lips curled into that terrible grin again. Love won't save you. Then she lunged. Her body moved faster than I thought possible. She hurled herself down the aisle straight toward me, arms outstretched, her scream echoing through the sanctuary. I screamed, bracing myself, but Pastor Collins stepped in front of me. He thrust the cross toward her, his voice booming. Leave her, demon. You have no power here. The moment the cross touched her skin, Emma shrieked and fell backward, writhing on the floor. Her body twisted, convulsing, as if something inside her was fighting to stay. The sound was unbearable, bones cracking, her throat tearing with unholy cries. I dropped the bat, falling to my knees beside her, sobbing. Emma, fight it. Don't let it take you. Please, baby, come back to me. For one terrifying moment, her hand shot up and gripped my wrist, cold and trembling. Her eyes locked on mine, half her, half something else. And she whispered, so faintly I almost missed it. Help me. Then her eyes rolled back, and the thing inside her took over again. With one violent shove, she flung me across the pews. My body hit the wood hard, the air leaving my lungs. I gasped, pain shooting through me. When I looked up, Emma was standing again, taller, darker, her face twisted into something not human anymore. And she was smiling. Emma stood in the center of the church, her body trembling with unnatural strength. The dim light from the stained glass windows painted her face in streaks of red and blue, but nothing could hide the horror in her features. Her eyes were wide, black, bottomless pits. Her smile stretched too far, almost tearing the corners of her mouth. I pulled myself up from the pew, clutching my aching ribs. Emma, please fight it. Don't let it win. She tilted her head, that terrible grin widening. There's nothing left to fight, Mom. She's mine now. Pastor Collins stepped forward, holding the cross firmly in one hand and his Bible in the other. His voice rang with authority. You will not have her. By the blood of Christ, I command you, release this child. Emma's laugh echoed through the sanctuary, high-pitched and chilling. Child? She's no child anymore. She's broken. You left her to rot in that place. You gave her to me. Her words cut through me like knives. My knees buckled. Tears spilled down my cheeks. No. I did what I thought was right. I wanted her safe. I wanted her healed. Emma's body jolted, her head snapping to the side violently, then back again. Her voice changed, layered. Half hers, half something monstrous. Safe? You abandoned her. That's why she came to me. Pastor Collins moved closer, his voice rising over the growl. Evil lies. I know who you are, and I know your time is short. He pressed the cross forward and Emma shrieked, her body twisting as if the air itself burned her skin. I stumbled forward, unable to hold back anymore. Emma, listen to me. You're stronger than this thing. Remember when you were little and you used to sing with me in the kitchen? Remember how your daddy would dance with you in his arms? That's who you are. Not this. For a moment, just a moment, her face softened. Tears welled in her dark eyes. Her lips trembled, whispering, Mom. I reached out my trembling hand, desperate to touch her, to hold her, to pull her back from the darkness. Yes, baby. I'm here. I'll never leave you again. But then her body stiffened. Her eyes rolled back. And the voice that came out was not hers. Enough. The church shook violently. The pews rattled. Candles fell from their holders, spilling wax across the floor. The cross in Pastor Collins' hand burned hot, forcing him to drop it with a hiss. Emma rose higher, her feet barely touching the ground. Her arms stretched out, her hair whipping around her face as if caught in a storm. The air grew thick, heavy, pressing down on my chest until I could hardly breathe. And then silence. Emma lowered her head slowly, her blackened eyes locking on me. "This ends tonight, Mom," she said in a voice that was both hers and not hers. "One of us isn't leaving this church alive." The words rattled inside my skull. One of us isn't leaving this church alive. My knees nearly buckled beneath me. My baby, the same girl I once rocked to sleep, the same child who used to hold my hand at the grocery store, was standing before me, her face twisted into something monstrous, threatening my life. Pastor Collins placed himself between us again, raising his Bible high. His voice thundered through the sanctuary. "You will not touch her. I bind you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ." Emma hissed, her body jerking violently, as though invisible chains wrapped around her. Her head snapped back, her arms twisting unnaturally. She screamed, the sound shrill and piercing, shaking the very walls of the church. I clutched the edge of the pew, my whole body trembling. "Emma, baby, listen to me. You're stronger than this. Don't let it win." For a heartbeat, her voice broke through the growl. "Mom, it hurts." Tears blurred my vision. "I know, sweetheart, I know. But I'm here. I'll fight with you. You're not alone." Her face contorted again, and the dark voice returned. "She is alone. You left her. You put her away. And now she's mine." Pastor Collins' voice grew stronger, almost shaking the rafters. "The truth of God sets her free. Spirit of darkness, your hold is broken." Suddenly, Emma's body collapsed onto the floor, convulsing. Her hands clawed at the ground, her mouth foaming. Her cries echoing in both her voice and the voice of something ancient and cruel. I fell to my knees beside her, sobbing. "Please, God, don't take my baby. Not like this." Emma's hand shot up and grabbed my wrist with terrifying strength. Her blackened eyes locked on mine. And for a moment, I thought I saw her again, just her. "My Emma. Mom, help me," she whispered, her lips trembling. I cradled her head in my lap, rocking her like I did when she was small. "I'm here, baby. I'll never let go. I love you." But then, without warning, her body stiffened, and her mouth twisted into that inhuman smile once more. Her grip on my wrist tightened painfully, bruising my skin. Her voice dropped to a growl so deep it shook my bones. "If you love her so much." Her head snapped toward the altar, eyes blazing. "Then die with her." Before I could react, a deafening crack split the air. One of the massive wooden beams high above groaned, then tore free. It plummeted straight down, aimed for me. The sound of the wooden beam splintering overhead was like thunder inside the church. I looked up, my body frozen, as the massive timber hurtled down toward me. In that split second, I thought it was the end. I thought I'd die there, crushed beneath the weight, and my daughter, my sweet Emma, would be lost forever. But Pastor Collins moved faster than I ever believed possible. With a cry, he shoved me out of the way, and the beam crashed down where I had been kneeling, splitting the pews into shards of wood. The ground shook. Dust filled the air, choking my lungs. I coughed violently, my ears ringing, and scrambled to my knees. "Pastor." He was lying on the floor, groaning, blood trickling from his forehead. He had saved me. He had given me another chance. Emma stood across the wreckage, her chest heaving, her face twisted between two worlds, the daughter I knew and the monster that controlled her. She looked at me, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw her hesitate. Her lips quivered. Tears welled in her dark eyes. "Mom, I don't want this." I crawled toward her, ignoring the shards of glass and splintered wood cutting into my hands and knees. "Then fight it, baby. You can. You're stronger than this evil. You're my daughter. You're John's daughter. You don't belong to the darkness." She shook her head violently, clutching her hair as if something inside her was clawing to stay. Her voice shifted, Half hers, half the demon's. You can't save her. She is mine. I slammed my hand against my chest, tears blinding me. Then take me instead. Do you hear me? Leave her alone, take me. The church fell silent. Emma froze. The dark presence inside her paused, almost stunned by my words. Then a horrible laugh filled the sanctuary, rolling from her throat but not her soul. You would give yourself for her? Yes. I screamed, my voice raw. I would die 1,000 deaths if it means my daughter is free. For a long, terrible moment, Emma just stared at me. Then something broke. Her body collapsed to the floor, shaking violently. Her scream tore through the church, a sound of pain, rage, and release all at once. A thick, black shadow poured from her mouth, rising like smoke, twisting and writhing as it shot toward the rafters. The candles flared. The windows rattled. The darkness shrieked, and then it was gone. Emma lay limp in my arms, her chest rising and falling, her face pale but peaceful. I held her close, rocking her the way I did when she was little, my tears soaking her hair. It's over, baby. You're safe. Mama's here. I'll never leave you again. Behind me, Pastor Collins whispered weakly, the darkness is broken. She's free. I looked down at Emma, her eyes fluttering open. For the first time in so long, they were just her eyes. No shadows. No blackness. Just Emma. She whispered, Mom? I smiled through my tears. Yes, sweetheart. Her lips trembled. I'm sorry. I kissed her forehead, sobbing. There's nothing to be sorry for. You're home now. And in that broken church, surrounded by splintered wood and shattered glass, I learned the truth. Love, real love, doesn't run when things get hard. It fights. It sacrifices. And sometimes, it's the only thing strong enough to drive out the darkness. So if you're listening to me now, wherever you are, remember this. Hold your loved ones close. Even when they push you away. Even when they're lost. Because you never know when your love might be the only thing strong enough to save them. Now if you followed this story all the way here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification button for more. And tell me, what part of the country are you watching from? I'd love to know where my story has reached. Because this isn't just my story, it's a reminder for all of us. Broken heart.